Here in Minnesota, hostas are everywhere. But why are there so many? For centuries, hostas existed as a distinct wild species adapted to mountains, forests, and riverbanks across East Asia. And now there are over 7,000 hosta cultivars around the world. Some people claim to have even invented fluorescent hostas. But are they real? And my favorite question, are they edible? Today, we're talking about the history of the hosta.
It's the middle of winter. The ground is frozen solid. The garden is quiet. No flowers, no buzzing, no growth you can actually see. Just snow, sticks, and a faint memory that the space once felt alive. But here's the secret. Winter is when some of the best gardens are born. Not in the soil, but on paper, in notebooks, and in those quiet moments when the landscape finally slows down enough to show you what it really needs.
Hello and welcome to the Petal and Plot Pod, a seasonal plant stories and garden tips podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Anissa.
And this is Eric.
Long before hostas lined our walkways, they grew wild in East Asia, primarily Japan, China, and Korea. In Japan, hostas have been cultivated for over 1,000 years. They were known by names like giboshi, a word referring to ornamental finials shaped like the plant's unopened flower buds. These plants appeared not just in gardens, but in temple landscapes, carefully placed next to complement moss, stone, and shadows. Hostas were, of course, not valued for their bright blooms, but for the form and texture and the way they softened shady areas. And hostas were also not just ornamental. Some species were eaten as well. Their young shoots and leaf stalks were harvested as seasonal vegetables, especially in rural areas. This dual role as food and beauty kept hostas close to daily life. Have you ever eaten a young hosta shoot, Eric, or their flowers?
You know what? I never knew you could actually do that, and maybe until like a few years ago, like at the garden center when someone was talking about it. Actually, I think it probably was you. So I've
I do
actually
like to.
never taken you up on it and done it, but I what do they even taste like?
I haven't eaten them. They're definitely on my to-do list now. But I do enjoy foraging foods, and I imagine they probably taste kind of like fiddleheads, right? Or
Mm.
just sort of a watery, light green flavor.
Yeah. Is there a time that you're supposed to eat them, like early on when they're new shoots versus later on?
Yeah, definitely. So early on, when they're new shoots, is kind of the only time you want to eat them. And
Got
when
it.
they get a little bit bigger, I think there's a chemical compound that gets kind of bitter in the bigger leaves. But the
Mm.
flowers are edible too, so you could like throw those on a salad.
Got it.
Yeah, and apparently some taste better than others. I read that the Hosta fortunae is said to be one of the best tasting hostas, and also that all of the cultivars of the Hosta montana are also said to be delicious. Japan, during much of the Edo period, practiced strict isolation. Only a handful of foreign traders, primarily the Dutch, were allowed in limited access. Plant specimens had to be smuggled through narrow channels of permission and diplomacy. And by the early 1800s, hostas began appearing in Western botanical gardens. Their appeal was immediate. They thrived where other plants struggled. They tolerated shade, they survived cold winters, and they didn't demand a lot of attention. When Western botanists first encountered hostas in the 18th century, though, they didn't know what to make of them. Carl Linnaeus, the father of modern taxonomy, initially grouped them with daylilies, placing them in the genus Hemerocallis. Others argued that they belonged with plantains, and for decades, hostas bounced around between scientific categories before a formal hosta genus was created. The hybridization of hostas accelerated in the mid-1900s, especially in the United States. As suburban landscapes expanded, gardeners needed plants that were tough, long-lived, low maintenance, and beautiful in the shade, and hostas fit perfectly. Breeders carefully hand-pollinated flowers, collected seeds, waited, sometimes years, to see what traits would emerge. Most seedlings were discarded, and only a few named and registered. This slow, selective process produced dramatic diversity, and today there are over 7,000 registered hosta cultivars, though only a fraction remain in common cultivation. Some emphasize flowers, lavender, pale purple, or even a fragrant white, but most focus on the leaves heart shaped, lance like, puckered, twisted, cupped, or edged in gold. Plant breeders began intentionally hybridizing hostas. Leaf colors multiplied blue gray, chartreuse, variegated creams and golds. Sizes expanded from delicate miniatures to massive high waisted giants. Eric, have you ever had someone show you a picture of a fluorescent pink or electric blue hosta and then asked you where they can find them?
Yes, this has happened many times at the garden center. I think my first thing is to like hold myself back from not laughing because I mean, as a plantsman, you instantly are like, that's not real. Um, or if
Mm-hmm.
it is, the plant world doesn't know about it yet. And I feel like many times they come from like Etsy shops where Etsy someone is selling seeds of it and being like, here you go. But it's just not possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Usually those images are created using AI or Photoshop to scam gardeners into buying these like rare seeds. And a lot of times when you get those seeds in the mail, they're like weeds or just really common varieties. So if you ever see
Yeah.
those out there and you're seeing like these just bright, 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 too good to be true colors, they are too good to be true. Vibrant hostas do exist, but they are in shades of like green, yellow, blue green, and white. But if you see those unnatural colors, if they look kind of painterly, if they're sold as rare seeds or rainbow seeds, like on Amazon or Etsy or Facebook, you can probably assume that it's a scam. Always buy from a registered nursery if you are unsure. But yeah, I've
Sure.
even had people sort of just assume that we didn't carry them when I told them they're not real.
I mean, the
And
reality is we do not carry them.
we don't carry them. And then they were like, "Okay, well, I'll go look somewhere else." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Report back."
The Raiders of the Lost Ark or something, finding that hosta.
Today, hostas are one of the most popular perennial plants in the world. Collectors seek rare varieties, specialty nurseries, trade divisions, and entire societies are dedicated to their study and preservation. And few places have embraced hostas, quite like the upper Midwest. With cold winters and short growing seasons and an abundance of shade from mature trees, states like Minnesota became the ideal home for the plant. Hostas thrived where other ornaments struggled. And in Minnesota, the admiration turned into an organization. The Minnesota Hosta Society was founded in the late 20th century by gardeners and breeders who wanted to study, preserve, and celebrate hostas. And what began as a regional interest group grew into one of the largest and most respected hosta societies in the U.S. The societies host educational meetings, garden tours, plant sales, and they also play a key role in sharing cultivar identification, preserving older varieties, and discouraging misinformation in plant naming, as well as educating gardeners about ethical propagation. So, Eric, where did you get the hostas in your garden? Did you buy them from stores? Are you part of the hosta society or like from friends and family?
I'm not part of the Hosta Society. I think that would be interesting to learn. But when we moved to our house today, I would say the hostas that were in the garden already came from our neighbors. And I remember this because neighbors would say, oh, I planted those, the neighbor before, or maybe for the sale of the house, someone wanted to throw some plants in quick. Shamefully, I've probably gotten rid of all of those for things that
Okay.
I enjoy. But that's really like there's so many hostas out there
So
and
many.
so many varieties that you may like. And so I love the blue ones and specifically like the big, large, like 3 foot hostas with those huge leaves bigger than your hand kind of thing. I think I
Mm,
have one called Humpback Whale that I love that comes up in
mm.
the early season, super blue and giant. It just kind of looks fancy then.
I love those too. Yeah, I don't think I've ever bought an hosta. Oh, no, that's not true. I did buy one from the Arboretum last year. But yeah, I would say I've been lucky to know a few gardeners that have had just dozens and dozens of varieties of hostas that I've gotten to
Yeah.
divide from them. I've kind of then slowly split those and moved those around my yard. I think I don't know,
Mm.
maybe no one should ever have to pay for a hosta if you don't want to. If you want to, you should, but there's so many hostas out there. Hostas for
right?
everybody.
Yeah, there really is. I mean, I've given some of the ones I've had and split them and given them to my neighbor, but also I've sometimes just put it out by the curb, when I wanted to like glean down maybe some of them, or
Mhm.
maybe it's just been time to kind of right size them sometimes, and they are gone in no time,
Yes.
right? So it's the plant that everyone will take.
Yeah, I've done that too before with irises and daylilies, although not everybody wants the daylilies, so
I am on that boat. You know me. I will not take a daylily from you.
Yeah, speaking of dividing, because hostas divide so easily, gardeners sometimes divide them a little too often. So frequent division does weaken the plant and reduce leaf size. Can have a little bit of a slow recovery. Most hostas only need to be divided about every 4 to 6 years, if at all. I guess some kind of are fine left undisturbed. But for
Mhm,
others, if you never divide the hosta, they can grow into these large clumps and look
mhm,
beautiful forever, and then suddenly the center will die out and leave kind of like a donut of smaller, like a ring of smaller leaves, because they're fighting for nutrients. So if you do see that happen in your garden, definitely get the shovel out, move them around. If you divide them every 3 to 5 years, it will keep them really vigorous and, well, provide a lot of new free plants. And despite
yeah,
their reputation, hostas are not all strictly shade plants, so check the variety. Some are fold apart shade, some are fold apart sun, some can do either sun or shade. Kind of a rule of thumb, those blue leaf hostas will lose their like waxy coating in super strong sun. The gold ones may scorch in the afternoon light, and even sun tolerant hostas do prefer a bit of afternoon shade.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a big one I usually get with sunlight. Because I'm always amazed at the people that are doing full sun gardens and then are wanting hostas galore. And although, to your point, I feel like maybe it doesn't kill them, but it can become a little unsightly. And it'll tell you if you
Mhm.
start to see those burned tips on your hosta, like especially as you get into July. I feel like that's an indicator that it's probably needs a little more shade, especially in that afternoon, like you said.
Yeah, for sure. Well, from temple gardens in Japan to backyard beds in Minnesota, from edible shoots to ornamental icons, the history of hostas is a history of resilience and travel and the sometimes overlooked beauty of the shade. So, next time you pass one, pause. You are looking at centuries of human care rooted deeply in cool, dark soil.
So, garden tip for this week, we're going to talk a little bit about garden planning in the dead of winter. So, winter is an underrated design season, I feel. So, in summer, gardens are loud, everything's growing, blooming, flopping over, and demanding your attention. And in winter, everything is like stripped down to the bones, right? And when you can see the bones of the landscape, you can kind of finally see what's working and what isn't. There's also like no pressure right now because you can't plant anything. There's no plant sales telling you to buy something immediately and have those impulse buys, and no weeds shaming you. So winter kind of gives you like that space to think clearly and like design intentionally. And Anissa, do you feel like winter actually makes you a better planner or designer?
I mean, I really do like to embrace the winter break from gardening, and just like
Yeah,
have some still time. I think taking a break is also a good part of the creative process to kind of let your
absolutely.
ideas reset. And so then
Yeah.
when it's getting to be, February and I'm starting to get that itch, you start to look forward to it, so much.
Yeah. I know I'm always that impulse buyer if I see something really cool in the garden center and I was like, that's coming home with me. I will find a spot, right? And so, like, winter's nice because I think you take that pause, but you can still like dream about the things that maybe you are wanting to plant in the next year
Have
or
a little
areas you want to
foresight.
tackle. Yes.
Mm.
So, one of the best things you can do right now is simply like walk your yard. If it's a cold day like today, bundle up, grab a coffee, and go take a slow like lap around your space. Even if everything is covered in snow, notice where snow melts first. That's usually your warmest, sunniest spots. Notice where snow never melts. That's likely shade or wind or even poor draining, making itself very clear to you. Pay attention on how the wind moves through your yard, where snow maybe drifts and piles up, and where the ground stays icy or soggy. So winter doesn't like hide problems, it kind of highlights them. And so look out your windows. The garden isn't just something you walk through, even, it's something you like live with every single day, especially in the wintertime when we're just staring out our windows, dreaming of sunnier, greener days. And he says, what's something you've noticed about your yard in winter that you maybe completely missed during the growing season?
Well, I definitely feel like it's a nice time to think about, like, my shrubs, because 'cause they're kind of the
Yeah.
only thing you can see in a lot of areas, so then I'll spend more time thinking about them and, like, how big they're gonna get and, like, do I wanna put another big, like, architectural piece in there? So I do kind of like
Mhm.
how it just sort of, like, simplifies the space.
Yeah, for sure. I love the wintertime because I feel like in design we always kind of talk about structure first, or we talk about like put in your trees and large plants and or hardscape first before thinking of all the little flowers and the pretty perennials or annuals you may use. And I think like for me what I notice is structure. So I'll notice as I'm looking out my window right now, I can see directly across, and now I see during the winter time, I have like a direct view of my neighbor's backyard and like a big truck that they leave back there. Instantly, I was thinking like, I just need an evergreen that would just like grow tall enough. And so in the winter time, I get to see evergreen. I also think there's a comparison of seeing how many evergreens you have versus deciduous plants, because when you have deciduous plants, although like sticks can be pretty, like birches or dogwoods or such. Like if you don't have any evergreen, it kind of feels flat too. And so I feel like it's a good indicator to kind of tell you like where does it kind of make sense to have some of those things. So in the wintertime, it gives you kind of a vignette or something to enjoy. Yeah.
Yeah, I've noticed when I walk around my neighborhood, when I'm walking the dogs and I'm looking at what other people's yards look like in the winter and what's really
Yeah.
standing out. And then I do get a lot of inspiration from that this time of year because then when I get home and I see those flat areas like you're saying, oh, I did really like how that evergreen looked. Or maybe I do
Mhm.
need some red twig dogwoods over there because it is a
Yeah.
really nice element to see in the wintertime, especially since we have such a long winters.
Yeah, exactly. And winter is like a big picture season. So this is the time to like think beyond individual plants and start thinking about structure like I was talking about. Where do you want paths? Where should trees go long term? Are there areas you'd love to turn into garden rooms or spaces that feel more intentional? This is also the perfect time for messy sketches. And I mean messy. You don't need artistic talent, just curiosity. So if you can draw a blob and label it tree, you're doing it right, right?
Mhm,
So,
absolutely.
mood boards can be incredibly helpful. Pinterest, magazine clippings, screenshots, anything that helps you understand what you're drawn to. And so, winter allows you to plan slowly, and slow planning almost always leads to like
Mm-mm.
better gardens, I think. Um, so thinking of sketching, Anissa, are you one that likes to sketch things out, or are you like a mood board person, or something more digital? What is your go-to for planning?
I definitely often just sort of keep the visualizations in my head. I think too, I like you, I end up being kind of impulsive and then I'm like, oh wait, that looks beautiful. I can put that in there. And then so I have like a vague plan in my mind that I'm working with, but I don't always give myself a very formal plan.
Which is funny. As garden designers, we're always like,
Oh yeah.
actually putting things down, but when it comes to our own gardens, it's maybe
Right.
different.
Totally.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of both. I mean, I'm not a great sketcher, I know that, but I can make blobs, and that helps me like identify just like empty spaces that I'm like, this area needs something, right? And not that I have to solve it or draw, an exact replica of a pine tree on it or anything. And then I also like digital, but even just going out, snapping a photo of your backyard or front yard or something. And then many online tools can allow you, or even just on your phones or whatever now today, you can literally just draw on them. And even
Mhm.
just drawing things on a photo, you could draw a tall, skinny bob, maybe for something that's going to be very upright and columnar. Maybe you just identify, I need more evergreen in this area, but maybe I feel like a tree here, shrub areas here, and then like this space maybe up in front or in little pockets, this is where flowers will go. And I feel like it can just be that as a very general starting point that just kind of gets your mind thinking. And then I feel like you can look at some of those other dream photos on Pinterest or magazine clippings that you're like, I love this. And then maybe it's just like an element or two off of that. You say, like, what are like the two, three plants that I love in this that maybe I could literally just kind of copy and paste? And so I've even done things like on PowerPoint or Canva where you can, again, snap a photo of your space. And then if you Google some of these plants that you think you like and just kind of like cut them out digitally, if you will, and clip them then to that landscape, kind of helps you almost create it visually without being super precise. But that's kind of how I think I'm a little more on the digital side when it comes to planning, sketching many times. Like I need to kind of visually see it out of my mind and see what that really looks like.
Yeah, that's one thing I love about making digital designs for other people is because you can move them around. I mean, I like the way
Yeah.
hand drawings look a lot. Like, I think that they're my aesthetically, a hand drawn garden design is my favorite. But a
Hmm.
digital design is so nice because you can swap things out, you can move things around, you can give people more than one option. Like, do you like this or that without
Right.
it taking a ton of time? And I really like your advice about taking a picture of your space and then using those drawing tools on our phone to just make a blob. It does not have to look
Hmm.
good. How would a 12-foot, shrub look right there? Oh, yeah, it
Exactly.
looks great. Or no, it's too big. Or, you know, that's a great, easy, simple tool to get started. And I also really love working with people who do like to do mood boards, who like come with photos in hand and they're
Absolutely.
like, I like this, and that, like,
Yeah.
that's really fun.
Yeah, well, it makes our jobs a lot easier to understand what is it that they enjoy because as, horticulturalists, I feel like we can easily identify like what is that plant and what situations does that grow and live in so we can easily help them figure out like where could that be in their garden or how would you recreate that. And if you know what, if you don't know how to do any of those things, that's where you call us up and we will do it for you.
Absolutely. We are here too.
So here's the mindset shift winter kind of invites us into. We're not just designing for summer, we're designing for all four seasons, so including this one, which makes thinking about trees, shrubs, evergreens, bark texture, grasses, and even seed heads from our perennials. These are the elements that give a garden structure when flowering has completed. So, birch bark glowing against snow, dogwood stems adding color, grasses catching frost and light. Flowers are wonderful, but structure is what kind of holds a garden together. And once you've started noticing winter beauty, you can't unsee it. So, suddenly sticks are interesting, and that's when you know you've officially become a garden person. Anissa, is there a plant or feature you appreciate more now in winter than you ever did during the summertime?
So, I would definitely say, like, the red twig dogwood. I think dogwood looks is just kind of a boring looking shrub. They are beautiful and I love them, don't get me wrong, but then in the
Yeah.
wintertime to have those bright red twigs is so pretty, so I definitely think those look better in the wintertime than the
Mhm.
summertime. I wouldn't say that rhododendrons and azaleas look better in the winter at all, but I do appreciate them in the winter for a shrub
Mm,
that, just has, like, a little bit of texture that's still there, that also
mhm.
kind of has a little bit of a seasonal shift to it as we get closer to spring. You can kind of see spring coming as it starts to drop those leaves because they
Yeah.
drop them in the spring instead of the fall. And I think that's kind of fun as just a turning point in the season to see outside.
Yeah. I was gonna say something we haven't really hit on yet that isn't a plant. I decided I needed like a huge planter, just like a big pot
Mm.
in the garden.
Yes.
And I'm surprised how much I really enjoy looking at it during the wintertime. There's nothing in it. It's just this kind of bronzy, orangey, rough look to the pot. So it's got a little bit of a natural look, but I mean, it's about 4 feet tall, maybe like just under 3 feet wide. So it's like a big statement, but it's like another thing that I didn't realize that I enjoy having in my garden. I have like some other things like, trellises and things too that I think just add other interest that isn't plant. I'm so happy that I put it in. It was like one of those things that it actually creates like a focal point and something to look at.
So fun to have those, like, architectural elements in the garden.
Right.
For sure,
Yeah,
for sure.
statuary, things like that. I have a little
Mhm.
like pagoda on like, kind of the Japanese garden side. And I feel like I want to find a little light to throw in it because I think that would be really cool in the wintertime to have
Ooh,
it,
yeah,
the
that's
little
a good
window
idea.
light up or something. Um,
Yeah.
so I
Get
think
one of
those are
those.
like other things, to
Mhm.
think of.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have a couple sculptures in my garden that I really like,
Hmm.
having them as something to look at.
Yeah, you have some really cool artsy stuff that I love. So
Mhm.
I feel like mine are very half traditional in flavor, but you've got some art and artistic looking ones that I love.
Oh, the artist in the woods.
It's a good combo.
I have a listener here question for you from Brandy. Brandy writes in and says, I planted a hosta last year, but it never came up this year. What did I do wrong?
Um, I want you to answer this one first.
First thought was that I know if you plant them too deep, like they should sit like the where the root meets the shoot should be right at the soil level. So sometimes when people put them too deep, they'll kind of rot and they won't come up. Or
Mm,
if they're too wet, if it's a super low area, and they're too wet, that might affect them. I did kind of was initially thinking too, like my first thought would be to ask them if they have a bit or deer in the
that's what I
area.
was thinking. I was
Yeah.
like, what ate your hosta is probably a
Yeah.
good question.
Who's coming around? Because that seems to be a pretty common issue. People really love
Yeah.
hostas, but if you're living in an area where you have deer, you're just gonna constantly be disappointed, right?
Yeah.
So, if that's the case, and we don't know in this case if it is or not, but if that's the case, then I would definitely recommend just getting a different plant. Just, like, give up on the hosta. It wasn't meant for you. Try something else. Like, Brunera is one of my favorite plants of all time, and it
Mm,
was my first go-to suggestion, I think, for a replacement for a hosta because deer and rabbits usually won't bother Brunera because they have such a rough texture to the leaf, but they're super pretty and they
yeah.
take up kind of a similar visual profile, I think, in the garden. Plus, you get
Yeah.
those cute little blue flowers. But I don't know, what would you recommend
Yeah.
in lieu of hostas?
In lieu of hostas, I mean, there's so many shade-loving plants, whether it's like ligularia has a nice big leaf on it, even some
Mhm.
burgundy leaves is kind of cool. There's also lungwort, which is like a
Yeah,
nice
that's pretty.
silvery foliage and very
Mhm.
hardy and rabbit and deer resistant.
I love the flowers on the Pulmonera too.
Yeah, right. There's also Virginia would be another one, which actually gets some fall color to it when we get those cool nights and everything. It actually gets burgundy, orangey tones to the leaves, but it's a very lettuce looking, but gets a pretty little pink flower on it.
Yeah, and Virginia can tolerate both full shade and full sun, which is kind of fun.
Yeah. And because it has that thicker, waxy leaf, usually animals will
Mhm.
leave it alone. And then you kind of
Mhm.
get into other
Yeah.
things. I feel like geraniums are always a good one if you go with like a big leaf geranium.
I need to get some Virginia this year, I think. Get out the planner. On my list for 2026.
So, winter teaches us that rest is part of growth. Frozen ground doesn't mean nothing is happening, it just means the work looks different right now. Planning, dreaming, and observing all count as gardening. So, grab a notebook, look out the window, and let yourself dream a little. Your garden is already growing, just not where you can see it yet. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone. If you have a gardening question that you'd like us to answer, please write to us at petalandplot@gmail.com. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone you know and click the follow button to hear our next episode.
As garden designers here at Petal and Plot, we also offer year round, in person, and virtual gardening consultations and custom garden designs as well. Reach out to us if you'd like to set one up. Please follow us on Instagram at Petal and Plot. That's PETALNPLOT.